Welcome to a bonus episode of Diabetes Connections. This is actually kind of a mini episode. I'm going to call this a Minisode. There's a report that is being released today, and I wanted to make sure that you know about it. Hi, I'm Stacey Sims. I am the host of Diabetes Connections, which is a weekly podcast that is normally 45 minutes to about an hour long. We do interviews. We talk to tons of great people in our community, doing it for more than 4.5 years now. And this is not a typical episode, but I really wanted to get the word out about this. It is called The Truth About Insulin Prices, and it is a report from Patients for Affordable Drugs. Patients for Affordable Drugs is the only independent national patient organization focused exclusively on achieving policy change to lower the price of prescription drugs. It is a nonprofit organization, and you may have seen their ad. They ran an ad about insulin and the cost during the World Series. So I'm going to be linking up all of this information in the show notes and putting it on social media, but I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about the new report that came out from them today. And if you're listening on the day that this episode is released, this is World Diabetes Day, November 14th. So here is a little bit about the truth about insulin prices, and I do have their permission to excerpt from the report and just tell you a little bit more about it. This report tells the story of how the insulin crisis came to be and what we can do to fix it. Many of you are familiar with some of the numbers I'm going to be going through here, but many more are not. And you might want to share this with people who aren't even a part of the type 1 diabetes community, because the more people who are educated about this, the better. So this report goes on to say that the year 2021 is going to mark the 100th anniversary of insulin's discovery. But modern versions of the drug remain out of reach for countless diabetic patients across the U.S. 1 in 4 Americans ration their insulin due to the high price of the medication. The principal reason for this is that 3 companies, Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi, control 99% of the global insulin market. The report says these companies employ a range of questionable business tactics to effectively neutralize all threats to their profits. This is not a report that's mincing words. It goes on to say, evidence shows it costs between $2.28 and $3.42 to produce a vial of human insulin, and between $3.69 and $6.16 to produce a vial of analog insulin. Despite low production costs, the price of insulin has nearly tripled in the past 10 years. It goes on to show these increases. It goes on to talk about patent protection. You know, how can a drug invented in 1921 still have patent protection? But it does. And even the innovations and the improvements that were made in the 1990s really should be expiring soon, but they are not. The report talks about the price for taxpayers, the impact on patients, including rationing and deaths from rationing insulin, and they name names and they share personal stories. They talk about traveling to other countries, and then they talk about solutions. They talk about 3 comprehensive drug pricing policy solutions under consideration right now that would bring drastic reform to the pharmaceutical industry. These 3 include lower insulin prices, penalties on unjustified price increases, and patent abuses. So there's a lot here to unpack. Some of you are very familiar with a lot of these things. Some of you may not be, other than knowing that the cost of insulin is a problem. So I would urge you to go ahead and read this report. It's not long. It's about 7 pages. And then there's a whole bunch of endnotes because everything is very carefully vetted here. And I will link up on the Diabetes Connections page and in the group some links that can help you write to your congresspeople about the solutions that Patients for Affordable Drugs are talking about. In fact, the ADA just put some links out the other day. This is a chance for you to call your congressman, write to your congressman, and really push these solutions. But we need to get educated as a community, because this is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, it's one thing to read from the report. Let me tell you our personal story. And we are a family with excellent insurance. Costly insurance. I mean, I don't think any health insurance these days that you get through work or otherwise is like it used to be, where you'd pay very little, right? Remember those days? You'd kind of like, go and work, and am I going to pay like $10 a month or whatever? We're all paying a ton. And we opted for the higher payment per month. and a higher deductible because there are other benefits that we get. So we're paying a lot, but we have great insurance. So our insulin is easily covered. We can afford the payment. It's really not an issue. And we found ourselves with extra. Now, I know some of you have big stockpiles of insulin. We've never been able to do that, but we did have some extra. And I wound up giving the extra to someone in my community who needed it. This is not that unusual, right? A lot of you, as you listen, have done this. We have a friend who has an adult child with type 1. He is in between insurance. He's too old. He's older than 26, so he can't be on his parents' insurance. He works, but he doesn't have a health plan. So we give him insulin when we can. And I don't have any trouble with that. We do that in my local Facebook group all the time. Somebody drops a vial or forgets a pen. We give them insulin. It's what we do. But then we didn't have enough. So I went to my pharmacy. We were in between, we do that 90-day in the mail order thing for insulin. So I said, I need a vial of insulin. And my $25, that's what the vial would cost us if I bought them one at a time, $25 at the pharmacy. That vial was going to be $300. $300 because we were one over the limit. Now, I didn't have a choice, right? What are you going to do? I guess I could have gone back to my group and said, hey, does anybody have it? But that didn't feel right. When I could pay it, it would not be great, but, I could pay it. So I asked the pharmacist, though, I said, isn't there anything you can do? An emergency refill or something? And she said, oh, let me check. And she was able to push it through as a vacation refill, I think they called it, or an emergency refill. And we got it for $25. But there's no choice. You have to buy it, right? You have to get it. That's one teeny tiny dumb little story about how me, a person with great insurance, can wind up being impacted by these ridiculous prices. I'm sure you have your own story. I would urge you, tell it. Tell it to your member of Congress. Tell it to your community. It's World Diabetes Day. Tell your story. You can hook up with Patients for Affordable Drugs. I will link up all that information in the show notes. But please make your voice heard. The last few years, the groundswell of support for this effort is really gaining, and I think we are so close to making big breakthroughs. So thank you, Patients for Affordable Drugs, for putting this report out there on World Diabetes Day. It adds to the fantastic efforts that are already being done by the Insulin for All movement. We've talked to these folks before by T1 International, which is another fantastic place to go and get yourself educated about what to do about the price of insulin, and they advocate for people all over the world. Okay, I thought this was going to be a shorter episode, but I got myself going, so I'm still calling it a mini-sode. A little mini episode for you here on World Diabetes Day. Our regularly scheduled episodes continue. Next Tuesday will be the next new episode. And I am talking to Christina Martin, who is Type 0 Ninja. She's the first woman with Type 1 to compete on American Ninja Warrior. I hope you can tune in for that. Meanwhile, on World Diabetes Day, please tell your story. Please spread the word. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Sims, and I'll see you back here for our next episode.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.